Clarence Odom. Thank you, Clarence. You kept me in line, Clarence did. I was a little rascal sometimes. This is going to be heaven. That's what it's going to be. So thank you for coming. Let me give you a little bit of a synopsis of I'll read the Reader's Digest version of our church history, just because I think it's very interesting. When I read this, I want you to think a little bit about how God has continued, despite the ups and downs, the surprises, the changes, new pastors and new people. Everyone contributes to the church. The church is us, the people. All right? It's not the building. The buildings move around and we are different places, but it's the people. It's us. One day the church, we will see the ultimate church when we go to heaven, of course. But for now, think about this as I take a quick read through this. So, Petaluma Valley Baptist Church, as we know it today, was actually started as a mission of First Baptist Church in San Rafael. It called itself Calvary Baptist Mission. And it was just a very small group of people. I want you to think a little bit about that story in the Bible about the mustard seed. A little thing, or a little bit of yeast. On March 7th, 1949, Calvary Baptist Mission was constituted as a church. It had 13 charter members. We've grown a little bit since then. The pastor at that time was a gentleman by the name of J.A. Allison. The first budget, for those of you who are on the budget committee, was $17.50 a week. Pastor Allen, the salary was $7.50. We tried to improve on that a little bit. I just let you know that. The building rent was $7.50 and $1 was allocated to the cooperative program. All right. Between July of 1950 and May of 1952, a number of pastors had rotated through the pulpit, with Pastor James Kendrick ultimately leading the church to their first property purchase in Petaluma. In 1956, the church moved from its rented quarters in the old American Legion Hall to a new church building, which was constructed on the single lot that the church had purchased in Petaluma on Vallejo and D Street. And some of you will remember that little church. Pastor Kendrick was followed by Pastor Frank Reynolds in May of 1957 and Pastor D.A. Walker in March of 1958. In July of 1961, Wayne Jarboe, also a student at Golden Gate Seminary, was called as the pastor. It was during his pastorate that the church purchased 2 additional lots for $7,500. Can you believe that? Can't even say hello for that kind of money. In 1962, the name of the church was changed to First Southern Baptist Church. That same year, there were 90 members. Pastor Jeroboam was followed by Pastor Ray Reed in October of 1964. It was during Reed's 7.5 years that the church did a lot of growing during that time. And a 2-story educational building was added to accommodate that continued growth. So in attendance at that point, Bible study was around 150 people. So that's pretty good for a start up there. Got my notes on multiple pages here, so sorry about that. Around that time, 3 acres of property were purchased on what is now Sonoma Mountain Parkway. So this lot was just a pasture field, and 3 acres was bought. And I have to really think about the insight on that, to think that far ahead. The original intent of that purchase was to begin a mission on the east side of Petaluma. By the end of Pastor Reed's tenure, there were 265 members. In July of 1972, Gail Foltz became the pastor, followed by Art Nunn in January of 1974. I remember Pastor Reed and Pastor Nunn. Those were my first pastors here that I remember. Now, Pastor Nunn served until December of 1976, when he resigned to become the director of missions for the Sacramento Association of Churches. And in 1977, Bob Carroll became the pastor in what was to become the longest tenure of a pastor in this church's history. So you got something to strive for, Alan. In 1979, the church launched a mission team to start ministry work on the East Petaluma. As part of that launch, the 3 acres previously purchased was formally deeded to this new mission organization. However, the mission ultimately failed and ended in 1982. Now, right there there was a fork in the road, okay? A lot of decisions could have been made, but the Lord moved this church to go, well, why don't we just move the whole church over here? Why don't we just build on this lot and expand? So that's what they did. So as part of that process, the church went through one more name change. Petaluma Valley Baptist Church became the new name, better fitting to the area where the church was going to relocate. By 1988, ground was broken for 3 new buildings. A total of 15,000 square feet would be made available. And the church was relocated by February of 1989. The church added a new worship service at 1 o'clock in the summer of 1989 under the leadership of David Christensen, associate pastor. That service eventually began meeting at 8:30 on Sundays. Now, mind you, this building we're sitting in wasn't built then. We only had a little building out there, the fellowship hall. And that's where we had to make it all work, and we had a lot of folks. So we had to have more services. So in addition, the church services at 9:45 and 11, and they had Bible studies at all 3 hours. So we had 3 different services going in order to accommodate what the Lord had blessed us with. By the fall of 1995, a 450-seat worship center was added to the property with additional space available. It was decided now to scale down to 2 worship services, 9:30 and 11. By 1997, there were 703 members. Bob Carroll retired in May of 1998. At that point, the church had 5 associate pastors. The property was debt-free, and plans were underway to add 2 additional buildings. And that's when Tom Markham joined us. He joined us as a senior pastor in 1999. Under Pastor Markham's leadership, Petaluma Valley Baptist Church continued the process of building into the future. A new educational building was completed in the spring of 2002. A new parking lot was added. In addition, a multi-use pavilion over the courtyard was completed in 2010. A prayer garden was added in 2014. How appropriate. Pastor Markham served until 2017. He was followed by Pastor Allen in 2009. And then everything went crazy. But here's a man of faith who's stuck it out with us, and we appreciate that. I think the thing to be thinking about is that, again, all the eddies and turns, God brings the right people at the right time, the right pastors at the right time. I'm grateful for that. Thank you, Al.
Thank you. Well, Neil, I think you were here for the entire